I'm Tom Paw, Editor-in-Chief of Sports Afield magazine. I'd like to welcome you to one of our new group of videos, the Sports Afield Guide-To series. Like our magazine, these videos will be interesting, informative, and provide plenty of outdoor fun and opportunities for sportsmen and women like yourselves. Even more important, we feel the information in these videos will help make you more successful on your next outdoor adventure. As you've just seen, sporting clays is exciting and challenging. It's a shooting sport the entire family can enjoy. For those of you who are new to sporting clays, we will cover the rules, necessary equipment, and how to properly score the game. For the more experienced sporting clays shooter, our pros will give the inside tips on how to achieve higher scores, even at the more challenging stations. And I know you will enjoy meeting our Sports Afield editors, who will share their sporting clays knowledge to help improve your game. So please sit tight, because we are about to give you the inside track on this fascinating, fun-filled game, shooting sporting clays.
Just keep the weight on the front foot. Front foot? Front foot. The weight, that way, the weight's over the gun. As soon as you lean back, your head comes away from the stock.
For more than 60 years, shotgunners from the United Kingdom had the most exciting, fun-filled clay target shooting game all to themselves. This shooting game was developed to help improve shotgunners' wing shooting skills. Lucky for us, the shooting game of sporting clays took a foothold in the United States about 15 years ago. Since then, it has captured the imagination and spirit of countless numbers of shotgun shooters across the country. This challenging and exhilarating form of clay target shooting has surpassed all other clay target shooting games since its arrival.
Pull!
More than 1,000 official courses have been established throughout the country, and many more informal sporting clay courses are being designed and set up at gun clubs, shooting preserves, and organizations on a regular basis.
A friend introduced me to sporting clays, and since then I've introduced a lot of my friends to the sport.
The reason sporting clays is the fastest growing of all the shotgun sports is simple. It is the only shooting game that closely simulates actual hunting conditions.
She's got something. She's got something. Great, Jay! Nice shot. Woo!
Tough one.
Designed to imitate field shooting, sporting clays, also known as hunter's clays, allows a shooter the ideal opportunity to learn the fundamentals of shotgunning and hunting in the most realistic settings possible. Now let's hear from Sports Afield shooting editor Gresham.
You know, a lot of hunters tell me that shooting at clay targets is one thing, but that it doesn't really duplicate the kinds of shots you get when actually hunting. Now that's about as close as it gets to the real thing. Let's take another look at that shot with an instant replay from another angle. If I had failed to lead that clay target, I would have missed it, just like I would have missed a duck dropping into the decoy. Believe me, it's good shooting that helps you break any target, whether it has feathers on it or not. This is just one layout of a new shotgun game called Hunter's Clays. With different setups, Hunter's Clays can simulate, indeed come awfully close to actually duplicating, just about any type of shot you'll find in the field, from decoying ducks to a covey rise of quail. Let's take a closer look.
The object of a sporting clays course is to present shooters a wide variety of flying and running targets that duplicate either the flight of game birds or the erratic running patterns of small game, such as rabbits. A sporting clays shooter can expect to encounter clay targets that will duplicate flushing, crossing, overhead, incoming, outgoing, running, and many other angles or patterns that game will make. A typical sporting clays course, which normally has 5 to 10 shooting stations, is purposefully designed to be laid out through the natural landscape. Often when a course is designed, the designer makes full use of the natural terrain, including setting up stations in thick woods, over ponds, in fields, and at any other natural feature that will create as realistic and natural setting that can be provided to the shooter. As with many other shotgun games, sporting clays is usually shot in squads consisting of 3 to 5 shooters. Shooters begin the game at station number 1 and advance through each of the stations until they have completed shooting the entire course. Most sporting clays courses also include at least one station where the shooter is challenged by a clay target bouncing quickly and erratically along the ground. At any station, a shooter may encounter targets that are thrown as either singles, synchronous pairs, succeeding pairs, or report pairs.
All right, perfect station.
Thank you.
A report pair means the trapper who releases the clay target does not send the second bird until he hears the report or firing of the shotgun at the first clay target. In addition, to challenge shooters more, the size of the clay birds used in sporting clays may vary considerably, from the size of the clay birds used for trap and skeet to the smaller mini targets. Typical course. Depending on the number of stations a facility has, a complete round of sporting clays can include shooting at either 50 or 100 targets. Most times, there are 10 targets thrown from each station. Typically, a shooter will call for each target by yelling, "Trapper ready," then pull.
Ready? Pull!
The thrower, the person who releases the clay target from within the shooting house, will send the target out within 3 seconds after hearing the call.
Up.
Sporting clays constantly challenges shooters. Whereas most trap and skeet shooters are allowed to shoot at their clay targets with the gun mounted at the shoulder, sporting clays shooters are required to start out with a low gun. This means the shooter must have the butt of the gun below the shoulder and not raise it until the target comes into view.
The thing I like about sporting clays is it really tests your eye-hand coordination. It's very satisfying to shoot the clay pigeons and see them fall. And it's challenging. It's not easily accomplished, and I like a challenge.
You're all over it.
Just behind him.
Sporting clays is a wonderful sport. It's something that you can do alone and compete against yourself. It's something you can do with your family or also with your friends. Oh!
Indeed, when it comes to sporting clays, a group of women in Houston, Texas have taken matters into their own hands, so to speak. They've organized the country's first women's-only shooting event, and now annually attract some 200 women to this charity event.
For some reason, always associated shooting with hunting, and didn't realize you could have so much fun just shooting, just for the sport of shooting the clay.
Once again, let's hear from Sports Afield shooting editor Gresham.
Basically, expecting the unexpected is what this type of layout is all about. With the trap on my right and a trap out front, all kinds of outgoing and angling targets can be simulated. Let's give it a try. These birds come out both high and low, as well as singles, doubles, and even a whole bunch at one time, just like a covey rise of quail. When hunting in heavy cover, You typically have only a few brief seconds to get a shot off at a fast disappearing bird. This kind of shooting puts a real premium on a fast but smooth gun mount. Up! Once again, Hunter's Clays has the perfect setup to practice these kinds of quick and challenging shots. You have traps set up to the right and left of the shooter, and it doesn't take long for those targets to disappear into the woods. Let's try it again. Up! Up! Let me tell you, if you hunt grouse or woodcock, pull. This game was designed for you. Hunter's Clays is not only an extremely versatile game that can simulate just about any type of shot you'll find in the field, it's also a game that will adapt to almost any type of terrain, anywhere really that you have room to shoot and a safe background. You're limited only by your own imagination. An old farm pond, for example, can become an ideal environment for some tricky shots that simulate passing or decoying waterfowl. If your property is mostly woodland, a compact stand tucked into a clearing doesn't take up much space at all. Even a whole series of layouts doesn't take up that much room. At Fairfield, all kinds of Hunter's Clays games have been set up at one end of an unused field. The entire layout is only about 250 yards long and 50 yards deep. A great layout for most any shooting preserve or sportsman's club. Also keep in mind that Hunter's Clays doesn't have to be an elaborate or even permanent affair. You can put together a setup like this for around $100. A couple of portable traps, some bales of hay, and a shooter's cage are all you need. Set out with the traps on either side of the shooter, you can throw all kinds of crossing or angling away targets. Or set up on a high point behind the shooter, you can throw a variety of tough overhead targets.
Go ahead and load. Okay, now don't, when you get ready, don't swing back this way. Think of that as another hunting blind. Okay, so line up. Get that gun right in your arm there. Okay, anytime you're ready.
Pull.
I can't think of a better way to introduce young people to shotgun shooting. I wish it had been around when I was teaching my sons and daughter to shoot.
Okay, go ahead, Leslie.
It provides a realistic environment to teach safe gun handling skills in the field.
Okay.
And the traps can be adjusted to throw slower targets for the beginning shooter.
Okay.
With this setup and a little coaching, you'll have them breaking birds in no time. If you'd like more information on Hunter's Clays, drop a note to the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Hunter's Clays, Post Office Box 1075, Riverside, Connecticut 06878.
Thanks, Grits. And by the way, great shooting. Now, before we talk about how to score a round of sporting clays, let's discuss some general guidelines about the rules of shooting sporting clays. Clay targets should represent as close as possible actual game shooting. Trap machines must be hidden from the shooter's view. Only one gunner at a time may shoot at targets. The toe of the butt of the gun must touch the shooter's waistline prior to shooting. Targets must be launched within 3 seconds of the shooter calling pull. A shooter may not shoulder a gun until the target appears. A shooter must use a 12-gauge shotgun or smaller. Shells must not contain more than 1 1/8 ounces of shot. Do not load the gun until you are in the shooting station. When leaving a station, check the gun to make sure it is unloaded before turning in the direction of the referee or other people. The thrower must announce sequence of targets in advance. All targets released must be the same for each shooter. A gun may not be loaded with more than 2 shells at a time. On single targets, 2 shots are permitted. However, scoring is the same whether the bird is broken on the first or second shot. On doubles, the shooter may fire twice at the same target or may switch to the second target. However, If a shooter breaks both targets with a single shot, they are scored as 2 separate hits. Sports Afield recommends always checking all the rules of a course prior to beginning the shoot. Now, let's describe how to score a round of sporting clays. This graphic represents a typical sample of a sporting clays card. The column on the left represents the station numbers. The boxes to the right of the station numbers represent the number of hits or misses made at that station. A target scored as a hit, kill, or dead bird is designated on the scorecard as an X. Targets not struck or broken are called lost or missed. They are entered on the scorecard as a 0. The total number of hits is then entered into the last column. Repeat this at each station to complete scoring a round of sporting clays. The object of sporting clays, other than improving wing shooting capabilities and hunting techniques, is to achieve the highest score possible. At the end of a 5 or 10 station course, the shooter with the highest number of birds broken is the winner. However, to prevent shooters from becoming too familiar with the speed and angles of individual stations, and therefore enabling them to get higher scores, courses regularly implement a policy to change the speed and angles of clay targets at each station. Partly because of this practice, sporting clays scores are normally not as high as the more traditional clay target games, including trap and skeet.
Okay, right, just take it out. What you want him to do is lean back. Do exactly the opposite, lean forward.
Keep in mind that when you first begin shooting sporting clays, achieving a high score is difficult. A typical gunner normally breaks 35 to 40% of the targets on his first sporting clays outing. A goal of breaking 50% of the targets after shooting sporting clays a few times is reasonable for a beginner. Remember that the emphasis on sporting clays is not solely to be a competitive shooter. It is a documented fact that many more sporting clays shooters play the game for fun or to improve their actual field hunting shooting skills. Suggested equipment. A gunner can get started shooting sporting clays with relatively little investment, as most hunters already have the equipment needed. Keep in mind, however, that most hunters rarely shoot more than a box of shells during a day afield. Not so with sporting clays, where a gunner will shoot 4 to 5 boxes of shells throughout the course. Recoil becomes a factor not only in accuracy, but in deciding what type and gauge shotgun you should shoot. The autoloader affords the least amount of recoil. Therefore, most upland guns are well accommodated for this game. The most prevalent gauge used is the traditional 12-gauge shotgun, with actions being wide and varied, and including autoloader, hinge action, side-by-side, over and under, and pump. The 12-gauge over and under is by far and away the most popular gauge and action used for sporting clays. With a few rare exceptions, the pump gun is the least popular.
Comes the next one. Oh, just in front.
Generally, gunners who prefer to use a 20-gauge shotgun while hunting will use the same gun for shooting sporting clays. However, no matter what gauge you are shooting, it is recommended that a gunner shoot an open or improved choke, since most sporting clays shooting is done at close range. The more dedicated and competitive sporting clays shooter will change to different chokes from station to station, trying to improve his overall score. Whether you are a dedicated or casual shooter, you will get the most out of this game by taking care of your firearm. This means regularly and properly cleaning your shotgun each time you use it. It is also recommended that you install a quality recoil pad on your shotgun. A recoil pad with a radiused or rounded heel will help prevent it from catching clothing when brought up to the shoulder. Ammunition. The same loads that are used for trap and skeet can be used for sporting clays. These typically include shot sizes of number 9, number 8, and 7.5. For the competitive shooter, it is important to keep in mind that sporting clays rules prohibit using shot sizes larger than 7.5, with more than 1 1/8 ounces of shot, or a powder charge in excess of 3 1/4 dram equivalent. Accessories. Because gunners carry a lot of shotgun shells, a shoulder bag is an important piece of equipment. Additional equipment includes shooting glasses, ear protection, lightweight walking boots, a padded shoulder patch or shooting jacket, wide-brimmed cap to deflect the sun, choke remover, a variety of chokes, and a pencil and scorecards. Before taking on a round of sporting clays, let's look at some graphics that will help improve your score. Note, almost all sporting clay courses now release doubles at each station. The high overhead. Here, targets are thrown at the shooter passing directly overhead or slightly to the left or right, and about 30 to 35 yards high. Wait until the targets are almost directly overhead before shooting. Shoot the closest bird first, so the second bird doesn't pass you by before you can shoot at it. This station simulates all high-flying game birds. Flushing. Clays launched at flushing stations can be thrown fast or slow, and either at steep or flat trajectories. Get on these birds quickly and do not allow them to get too far away from you. By breaking the farthest bird first, you allow yourself more time to shoot the second bird. This station imitates the flight of upland game birds. Crossing targets at medium flying heights. These clays simulate targets thrown at some skeet stations with the classic broadside follow-through shots. The targets can be thrown from as little as a few feet above the ground to as high as the treetops. Because crossing targets are often obscured by foliage, it is recommended that you pre-pick a spot to try and break the bird. Have this spot picked out before you call for the target. Crossing targets at high flying heights. Again, at crossing stations, the target's elevation will vary. Often, this station will release target pairs simultaneously, report, or following. And once again, to maximize the number of birds you break at these stations, always pre-pick a foliage-free spot where you want to shoot at the bird before calling for its release. Both stations simulate the quick flight of grouse and woodcock. Fur and feather. Although some courses release a bird and a rabbit simultaneously, some courses will only offer a rabbit clay. Successful rabbit shooters shoot below the running target. Pellets striking the ground will skip up and strike the target, improving the shooter's score. These thick targets are rolled and bounced along the ground, usually passing behind a log or bush through their course. Simulates opposite crossing rabbit and bird. Springing teal. At this station, targets are thrown straight and high into the air, and once they have reached their apex, they begin to arc off in opposite directions. To improve your score at this station, try to break each of the birds as they ascend upward, and not after the birds have begun to fall back toward the ground. Simulates jump shooting ducks. Dropping or incoming. At this station, targets are thrown high into the air, usually over banks or treetops. They begin to fall about 30 to 35 yards in front of the shooter. Gunners should shoot well below the dropping targets, even though this seems unnatural. Note that most all dropping targets are missed in the field or at sporting clays courses because shooters traditionally shoot over the incoming birds or targets. Simulates waterfowl landing and decoys. Now let's hear a little more about the Ladies Charity Classic and what some of these women have to say about shooting in this competition and about shooting sporting clays in general.
Oh, we started out 4 years ago and expected 40 shooters and had 100. Now 4 years later we have over 270 from 15 states, from Washington to New York and Kentucky.
This is a perfect sport for a woman. She doesn't have to be strong, she doesn't have to be fast, she doesn't have to have unusual reflexes. If she can stand in one spot, say pull, and then pull the trigger, she can not only have a great time, break a lot of targets, but she can excel in this sport.
Good girl. Outstanding.
Okay, we got it.
Oh, I'm definitely coming back next year.
Next year, you bet I'm coming back.
Gun safety should always be a shooter's #1 priority. Here's Sports Afield Senior Editor Jay Cassell with an important safety tip. Jay?
Thanks, and you're right. Gun safety is every shooter's responsibility, and that means always pointing your gun in the right direction and keeping the action open and the safety on until you shoot. We at Sports Afield want you to keep the fun in your shooting by keeping safety uppermost in your mind. Good luck and good shooting.
Shooting sporting clays is more than enjoying a day of shooting fun and challenge. It's the most realistic way for waterfowl, upland, and small game hunters to practice for their sport all year long. Everything else connected with sporting clays is just more enjoyable icing on the cake. Don't put off shooting a round of sporting clays another day. Grab your shotgun and head off to the sporting clays facility nearest you. Shooters can find numerous sporting clays courses across the country to enjoy a day's shooting. To get you started, here's a list of just a few of the public courses near you. To obtain a complete directory of public shooting facilities, contact the National Shooting Sports Foundation, the National Sporting Clays Association, or Sporting Clays of America.